Today we're diving into one of the most debated topics in modern football, Graham Potter. Once hailed as one of the most exciting young managers in English football, his career has taken a nosedive, and I'm going to argue that Graham Potter might just be the worst manager English football has produced in recent times. Potter built his reputation in Sweden with Östersunds FK, taking a tiny club from obscurity all the way to European competition. It was a fairy tale story, and naturally, English football took notice. When he arrived at Swansea, and later Brighton, he was praised as a technical innovator, someone who could compete with limited resources. But here's the problem. Hype only gets you so far. Brighton under Potter were boring. Possession for the sake of possession, endless sideways passing, lots of XG, but not many actual goals. For all the talk about his philosophy, Brighton were regularly hovering over the relegation zone. And then came Chelsea. A club in chaos, yes, but also a club with unlimited resources. Todd Burley backed Potter with hundreds of millions in the transfer market. Enzo Fernandez, Modric, Joao Felix, you name it, Chelsea spent it. And what did Potter do with his squad? Absolutely nothing. He managed 12 wins in 31 games. At one point, Chelsea were closer to the relegation zone than the top four. The football was lifeless, the dressing room lost faith, and worst of all, Potter looked completely out of his depth. But if Chelsea was a disaster, things somehow got even worse when Potter was linked with and briefly worked within West Ham. A club built on grit, fight, and a direct approach suddenly had a manager obsessed with sterile possession. The fans hated it, the players didn't buy into it, and results predictably dreadful. West Ham under Potter looked like a team stripped of its identity. Instead of the aggression and the spirit that made them a Europa League force under Moyes, they were slow, passive, and completely predictable. West Ham wanted progress, what they got was paralysis. Now defenders of Potter will say, maybe he needed more time, or maybe the squad wasn't balanced. Perhaps Chelsea were a mess, and sure, there's some truth to that. But a top manager doesn't hide behind excuses. They adapt. Antonio Conte adapted. Thomas Tuchel adapted. Jose Mourinho adapted. Graham Potter, he folded. And if Chelsea wasn't enough proof, the West Ham spell sealed it. 2 clubs, 2 squads, 2 completely different cultures, and yet the same lifeless, predictable, excuse-ridden football. At that point, you can't just blame the clubs, you have to start asking questions of the manager. So where does this leave Potter? He's gone from being tipped as England's next great managerial hope to being a punchline. Chelsea fans saw no improvement, West Ham fans saw their identity ripped away. Other managers with less hype, Eddie Howe, David Moyes, even Sean Dyche, have shown more resilience, more adaptability, and more actual results than Graham Potter ever did. In English football, managers are judged on results, not vibes, and Potter's results at both Chelsea and West Ham were a disaster. So, is Graham Potter the worst manager in English football? When you look at the hype, the resources, and the sheer scale of his failures, the answer has to be yes. Not because he's untalented, but because he's proved that philosophy without end product is worthless. Graham Potter is a cautionary tale, not a success story. But what do you think? Was Potter unfairly treated? Or is he genuinely one of the biggest managerial flops in English football history? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.